Just because a location is aesthetically beautiful doesn't mean it's going to be the best place for your brand photo shoot. I feel like there are so many unexpected things that you need to look at when you're thinking about a location, specifically for brand photography, and I just want everybody to know about them because thinking about all of these things has made not just my life, but also my clients' lives a lot easier. When you are choosing a brand photo shoot for your clients, or if you're planning your own brand photo shoot, there are really four main things that we want to balance and consider. And those four things are strategy, ease, budget, and distance, pretty much in that order. So first up, strategy. Obviously, the location that you pick should be a visual match for your client's visual brand. If somebody has a dark and moody brand, you probably don't want to book a super bright and colorful space. The way that I create criteria for choosing a location starts with the photoshoot planning call, which is what my last video was all about. I'm really going off all of the notes that I made about location, about what my client is looking for, about their own inspiration that they have shared with me, and I use that as a filter for looking at locations. Another big thing that I think about strategy-wise is making sure that the location that I pick has a variety of backdrops. What I really don't want to happen is to show up to a studio that I rented, for example, and it just be like one room with just one backdrop and like one chair. That could be a really great place to shoot headshots, but with brand photography, I'm really trying to create that variety. So if a space or a location can't give me that variety, it's an immediate no for me. Other locations to consider are your client's office or home. A lot of my clients are personal brands, so a lot of them work from home. Let's say I'm working with a coach who works out of a home office. Usually they're on video calls and their home office is their default background. So I always like to ask like, hey, can we use your home office as one of our locations? Even if the client says no immediately, most of the time when I'm on the planning call with them, they're sitting in that room and I say, can you just like turn your webcam around? Or if that's not possible, can you send me phone photos or a phone video walkthrough of your space? Just because the client says like, oh, there's not enough light in here, that's not a problem for me because I have my own lighting setup. I want to make that judgment call of if it's a space that I can photograph in. Now, if they say no because they're not comfortable with it or because there's like too much chaos, they have kids and family around, that's totally fine. I just like to make sure that they aren't just saying like, oh, no, 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 I've had other photographers here and it doesn't work because they've never worked with me before and I've got my own setup. A lot of the time too, when it comes to my clients' homes or home offices, they'll say, oh, no, 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 it's too cluttered. Like, I don't think this will work. Sometimes if we just move stuff around, it'll actually be a perfect location. I always like to ask permission. I don't just like walk into my clients' homes and like bulldoze their house and move everything around, but I make sure they're open to it and let them know, hey, I really do think your home could be a great place if we just do XYZ and move these things around. If their home is off the table and they don't have an office, the next thing that I'll do is ask, where do you like to work from? If they have a co-working space that they go to, or if they like to work out of a specific cafe or another place somewhere else, those are potential locations. I always make sure to ask permission if we can photograph there or not. And then only after I've asked all of those things do I start to consider renting a studio. I used to have my own studio. It's called the Sunlight Space. I sold it. It is not mine anymore, but that was my default location. And I was able to include that in the cost of my brand photography packages. But now that I'm here in Boston, I don't have a studio here, so I'm finding myself renting studios and spaces more frequently than I used to. I will get into the logistics of renting a studio in the budget section later on in this video, but right now what I want to talk about is what do we even look for in a studio rental? Not just for me as the photographer, but also for the client. Is it easy to get to? How easy is it to photograph in this studio? So things that I am looking for as the photographer are natural light. Like I said, that's not necessarily a deal breaker because I do have my own setup, but when I can, I prefer to use natural light. If there is not enough natural light and I'm going to have to bring my own light setup, are there outlets in the space? I don't use battery-powered lights. Everything I have is a constant light, which is what I'm using to film right now. So I need outlets. For my client, I like to see, does the space have a bathroom or a changing area? Is there a good place to set up for makeup if we're bringing in a hair and makeup artist? What is the parking situation like? Is it easy to get into and out of the studio? For brand photo shoots, I typically am bringing a lot of stuff. I'm able to wheel around everything I have in one bag, so it's not super complicated for me to get up a bunch of stairs. But if my client has brought a lot of props, I don't necessarily want them to be schlepping up 4 flights of stairs with no elevator. Also, if there's not dedicated parking for the studio space, I want to scope out, okay, well, what is the parking situation? Can we unload out front? Is there street parking? Do we have to park in a garage far away? Are we going to have to walk? I like to figure all of this out before even proposing that studio location location to my client. Now, the last thing I consider when it comes to ease for the studio is, are there any locations outside or around the studio that we could potentially use? I like to look around and see, are there any outdoor spaces, parks, towns, whatever, that are within 10 minutes of driving distance that we could use as well. Now, the third thing to consider when looking at locations for a brand photo shoot is, of course, budget. This topic is fresh on my mind because the Sunlight Space is out over on the West Coast. I am here on the East Coast, so I don't really have a studio space that I use regularly. If you know of a local studio that you could use regularly, it's worth considering adding that cost into your package price. When I first got the Sunlight Space and I was able to include a studio space in my brand photography packages, it totally skyrocketed my conversion rate and the number of inquiries that I got because everyone was like, oh, you have a studio that's so convenient, it's already included, let's go there. If you want me to make a whole separate video about all things studio, I can. But if you don't have a studio, which is totally fine, I didn't have one for the first 3 years of my business and I don't have one right now, my absolute favorite website to use to find spaces is PeerSpace. PeerSpace is basically an online platform where you can search for studio rentals by the hour. You can filter by photo shoots, and you can even find stuff to host events, workshops, parties, all that good stuff. I mostly look at photo shoot and production spaces. If you've never used PeerSpace before, I will leave my affiliate link in the description that will allow you to save $50 off of your first rental. Now, depending on where you're located, PeerSpace could either have a lot of options if you're in a city like me, or maybe not so much. If you are on the side where you have lots of different options, what I like to do periodically, maybe 3 times a year, is comb through local PeerSpace options, and I will save anything that could be a potential photoshoot location to a saved board. This makes it a lot faster for me to search through. You'll see when you get on it that a lot of places aren't really what you need for a photo shoot. You'll see probably lots of conference rooms or super small rooms. I just filter those out because they're easy to find if I do end up needing one. But like I said, having a saved board of all of your potential photo shoot locations will make it easier for you to comb through later. Another website that I've used in the past is called Gigster. In the locations that I've been in, haven't seen that many options on Gigster, and PeerSpace definitely has more, but you should definitely check it out in case people are more on Gigster in your area than in mine. If you are not finding any options on PeerSpace or on Gigster, something that you could do is just a regular old Google search looking for photo shoot studios. If there are no studios around you, other places that you could look for are potentially co-working spaces like WeWork or Industrious. Always make sure to ask permission that it's okay to photograph in that area. And sometimes they'll be super open to it, and sometimes they'll be absolutely not. Other places that you could potentially ask are cafes, restaurants, hotel lobbies. It really just depends. Now, the final consideration when choosing locations is distance. This mostly comes into play if you are trying to go to multiple locations during a single photo shoot. I really only include multiple locations if we're doing a full day photo shoot, because anything shorter than that, I don't want to waste time driving. With my full day package, I build in time for driving. And it's not like most of my clients can be ready in front of the camera for 8 hours straight, right? But when I do book multiple locations, I am very deep in Google Maps. After I've done the whole planning process with my client and I'm looking at different locations, I am inputting each of the locations inside of Google Maps. I am setting the departure time to when we think we're going to go, because you never know when there could be traffic. I typically don't like to choose locations that are more than 10 or 15 minutes away in driving time for the same reason. I just don't want it to cut so much into photo shoot time. Another tool that I use when I'm looking at locations is a free app called Lumos. I don't necessarily have the time or luxury to drive to all of these places in advance. So what I will do is use the Lumos app. I will type in the time and date that we are thinking about going to this location, and the app will tell me where is the sun going to be at this time. This is so incredibly helpful because in some locations, morning light might be a lot better than the afternoon light. And I want to know these things in advance, and then I can tell my client, hey, I know we planned on doing an afternoon shoot, but the light is going to be a lot better in the morning, so here's my proposed schedule. It's a really great way for you to do location scouting and also show your client, hey, look, I'm an expert. I have an app that tells me where the light's gonna be. It's just a fun little photographer flex, I guess. I don't know. Now, if you want access to my entire brand photoshoot planning process from start to finish, all of the templates, emails, my presets, everything that I use in my brand photography process, you can sign up for the waitlist for my course, Break into Brand Photography. I have a ton of behind the scenes of my own brand photo shoot, so you get to see how I interact with the client, as well as after the fact voiceovers, so that you can see my thought process during the shoot. I'll leave the link below, and I'll see you in the next video.